Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, even when you're alone? What if I told you that sometimes you're not imagining it? Story 1. The Man in the Closet. I used to babysit for a family down the street when I was about 16. They had 2 kids, a 5-year-old girl named Lily and a 7-year-old boy named Jake. I had babysat for them plenty of times before and never had any issues. But one particular night, I'll never forget. The parents were going out for a late-night dinner and asked me to stay until midnight. It was a normal evening. The kids watched cartoons, played a bit, and I eventually put them to bed around 8:30. Around 9:15, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone when I heard it. A loud creak from upstairs. I froze. I knew both kids were in their rooms, asleep. I brushed it off as the house settling and kept scrolling. 10 minutes later, another creak, this time louder, like someone was shifting their weight on the floorboards. My stomach dropped. I turned my phone off and just listened. Silence. I tried to convince myself it was nothing until I heard it. A whisper, faint, almost like a male voice. I stood up, my pulse pounding, and crept toward the stairs. "Hello," I called out. No response. I slowly climbed the stairs, checking the kids' rooms. Both were sound asleep. I felt ridiculous. Maybe I was imagining it. I started heading back down when I passed the hallway closet, and that's when I heard it again. Psst, from inside the closet. My heart stopped. I backed away and grabbed my phone, calling the parents. No answer. I dialed 911, but hung up, afraid it might be a prank. I finally mustered the courage, grabbed a baseball bat from Jake's room, and yanked the closet door open. Nothing, just coats and shoes. But the smell, the closet reeked of body odor, like someone had been standing in there for hours. I shut the door and ran downstairs, staying by the front door until the parents came home. The next day, the mom called me, sounding shaken. "Did you notice anything weird last night?" I said no, not wanting to scare her. She then told me their neighbor's security camera caught someone sneaking around their backyard at 11 p.m., and he was wearing a ski mask. The police came and found footprints by the kids' bedroom windows in the closet. It had fingerprints from the inside. Whoever it was, he was in the house the whole time, watching, waiting. Story 2. The Man Who Followed Me Home. Sometimes, the scariest thing isn't the monster under your bed. It's the stranger walking behind you. I work late shifts at a small diner about 5 miles from my house. Most nights I finish around 11 p.m. and walk home alone. It's normally quiet, just a few cars passing by, but one night I noticed something off. As I left the diner, I noticed a man standing across the street, half hidden in the shadows. I didn't think much of it at first until I started walking. I could feel his eyes on me. Every few steps I glanced back and he was still there, watching. I quickened my pace, so did he. I told myself it was a coincidence, but my heart was racing. I turned down a quieter street to test if he'd follow. He did, about 20 feet behind. No matter how fast I walked, he stayed at that same distance. I was about 5 minutes from my house when I decided to test something. I abruptly turned and walked in the opposite direction. He froze, just stood there, like he wasn't expecting me to do that. I stared him down, he didn't move. I turned again and sprinted toward my house. I could hear his footsteps behind me now, faster than before. I was panicking, gasping for air when I finally reached my house. I yanked my keys out, my hands trembling, and managed to unlock the door. I slammed it shut and locked it. I peeked through the window, and he was standing at the edge of my driveway, just staring. No movement, no sound. After 5 minutes, he slowly turned and walked away. I called the police, and they did a search, but no one was found. The worst part? 2 nights later, I found a note taped to my door. It read, "I'll be back when you're alone again." Story 3, The Man in the Vents. Sometimes the things hiding in your house aren't imaginary. I live alone in a small apartment. About a year ago, I started noticing weird things. Small items like my toothbrush or my hairbrush would go missing, and then show up in completely random places. I thought I was just forgetful. One night, I was watching TV when I heard a scraping noise. It was coming from the air vent above my couch. I froze. It sounded like something crawling. I laughed it off, assuming it was a rat, but the sound was too deliberate, like fingers scratching metal. The next day I called maintenance. They checked the vent and said there was nothing there. That night I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of breathing. Slow, heavy breathing, coming from the vent above my bed. I was paralyzed with fear. I finally jumped out of bed, grabbed my phone and aimed the flashlight at the vent. That's when I saw a pair of human eyes staring back at me. I screamed and ran out of my apartment, calling 911. The police arrived and pulled a man out of my air ducts. He had been living there for almost a week. He had stolen my toothbrush, my hairbrush, and small things, and he admitted he had been watching me sleep every single night. I moved out the next day. The scariest part? I still think about how long he watched me, without me knowing. Which story scared you the most? The man in the closet. 2, the man who followed me home. 3, the man in the vents. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you've ever had a creepy encounter with a stalker or felt like someone was watching you, share your story. I might feature it in my next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another chilling story from Darksbury.